AskReddit. Flight attendants of Reddit, what's the worst attempt at joining the Mile High Club that you've seen? I was on a flight maybe a decade ago during spring break, so lots of college students on my plane. It was a large plane with a middle row with 3 seats. I was to the left, and sitting on my right was a male army bro in his early 20s, and to his right a college-aged lady. They get to talking. She is obviously flirting with him. He is talking about his army training. It's not captivating at all, but they have chemistry. I watch a forgettable movie and disregard their conversation. About 2 hours in I start to hear make-out sounds next to me. I'm not gonna hate they can have their fun, but it escalates. I start to hear her moaning, and he quite obviously is fingering her aggressively. No shame at all. I feel a bit like the third wheel, so I went to the lavatory to give them privacy. After returning to my seat, it was apparent he had done a good job, and as we deplaned it was clear they were going to find the closest private space to finish the tryst. Sorry you had to third wheel that, mate. I'm not a flight attendant, but I once walked to the back of the plane when I was like 10 to take a piss. My family and I were coming back from Disneyland to Chicago, and I was mostly just bored because of the long flight. The bathroom sign said vacant, so I just opened the door not expecting anyone to be in there. I walked in on like an 80-year-old couple doing something weird. Apparently they forgot to lock the door. I was so shocked and embarrassed that I didn't even know what to say. I just stood there frozen in the doorway and said nothing. The old lady slammed the door shut, and I just walked back to my seat. I was really young and didn't really understand sex yet, so this didn't click in my mind until a couple years later. They were either having some fun or helping each other go to the bathroom. I don't even really know what I saw, but it wasn't pretty. When you're that old, they're both really the same. Not a flight attendant, but I was recently on a flight where 2 people made it obvious that they were trying to do the nasty. The bathroom on the airplane was extremely small and unfortunately the couple was more on the bigger side. They tried to both squeeze into a bathroom not so quietly, and it failed as they couldn't get the door to even close. A bit late to this, but my laddie friend is a flight attendant. Her best story is when the offending couple came out of the bathroom. They were presented with a first-time Mile High Club certificate signed by the whole flight crew, including the pilots. It was drawn on one of the first-time certificates given to little kids, and they crossed out a few words with crayon and wrote in Mile High Club instead of first-time flyer. The couple were suitably embarrassed. When I was a teen I heard a couple having sex in a disabled stall in a bathroom at the beach. I ran back to tell my friends. I was at a big social meet. About 20 people went to stand outside the toilet block. 5 minutes later we hear hooting, cheering, clapping and then dead silence. The guy had walked out first to much applause and mock celebration. Then the girl walked out and everyone recognized her as the girlfriend of someone in our group. He was still on the beach. That made everything awkward. There was this old guy who had 14 beers on the plane ride. It was written on his shirt. Then during a medical emergency, claimed he was not only a doctor, but also a licensed pilot. After refusing to provide identification of being a doctor, he asked if I was interested in going to the bathroom with him. Not a flight attendant, but I almost joined the Mile High Club once. I met someone flying home from college. I got bumped into first class. Found myself sitting there next to a positively ravishing woman. She was a bit older, and I was trying desperately to be suave, so when she leaned over and suggested we join the Mile High Club, rather than admit I was unfamiliar with the term, I whispered back, I really don't travel enough to make that worthwhile. That was 20 years ago. Nope, still can't laugh about it. Nope, still can't laugh about it. I can. Once I was flying from New York to Vegas to meet up with some friends and there was a guy next to me who was clearly pretty interested in chatting. So we had a very generic small talk conversation, and then I started watching a movie. Mid-movie I had to use the bathroom, so I asked if I could get past him. He said something and gestured what I thought meant "Oh, want me to move," and I just was doing my not actually listening, and yeah I have to get past. He walks out into the aisle so I can get out of RO, but he is between me and the nearest bathroom, so I move a step or 2 down the aisle so he can get back into out row of seats, but instead he starts walking toward the bathroom, and I thought, well fine, I guess he will go to the other one, since both vacant signs are lit up. but then he walks just past the bathrooms and doesn't try and open either of them. But oh well, I have to pee. So I go in, and within a few seconds someone seems to be trying to open the door. I say just a minute or something. It jiggles a few more times, and then I hear the guy from the seat next to me voice something like, "Let me know when you are ready" or something. Anyhow, I finish up and open the door, and he's standing right in front of it and starts trying to get in. So I just squeeze past him and have to push him a bit and run back to my seat. He comes back too and sits right back next to me, and we both sit in silence for the remainder of the flight. There seems to be a lack of flight attendants in this sub, so I'll chime in to help my coworkers. Couple gets on the plane in high spirits and make themselves comfortable in the last row of the plane, where out galley is. Myself and the other FA don't think much about it and go about our business. After service is done, we stow the carts, and I notice that there was a jacket covering the guy, and the lady was half under it. He was in the aisle seat, and she was by the window. Should point out now this was not a full flight. I'm tapping the other FA on the shoulder and whisper, "Is this really happening?" The lady's hands were clearly in his pants, and the guy reclined his chair all the way to enjoy what was happening. We had thought about getting them to stop, but were too uncomfortable to start a conversation, and they weren't making, well, any noise. As well as we figured, if the guy was gonna nut, it was gonna be in his jacket. So, we went back to doing our jobs. Guess what was stuck on the window after the flight? Spoilers, it was gum, but the initial scare got us good. Not a flight attendant, but had a guy next to me join the Mile High Club solo an hour into a 13-hour flight. I was going to take a sleeping pill, but I stayed bug-eyed awake the whole ducking time. The worst part was he used the arm closest to me. Edit. For everybody saying I should have said something, duck you. This was before the Me Too movement kicked off. I sat there thinking, this idiot can't possibly be doing what I think he's doing. I'm imagining things. It's his word against mine. It's a full flight. They aren't going to do anything. If the attendant doesn't believe me, then it's going to be an even more awkward 12 hours. I was flying to the UAE and read horror stories about American women getting raped and thrown in jail for extramarital sex. So I was terrified that either that would happen to me or that I was projecting my fears on an innocent person. Every Johnny Justice loves to tell me what they would do in hindsight, but they weren't there with those same thoughts going through their head. There was an article in The Atlantic, I think, about how this happens to women all the time and they don't speak up for these reasons. So I'm not alone out there, not a flight attendant, and using a throwaway because people know my main account, but I actually joined the Mile High Club about 5 years ago. Had known the girl, F, for a few weeks prior, met while traveling, and found out we were going to be on the same 10 hours flight home. We talked about doing it beforehand and made a plan. Once they started to serve dinner, I would go into the bathroom. 2 minutes later, she would knock, and I'd let her in. My friend that I was traveling with knew what we were doing and was standing watch. I told him wait 6-7 minutes, and when the coast was clear, knock on the door. We made a secret knock, so I would know it was him versus some random stranger. Then I would come out, and 2 minutes later, she would come out. It's important to mention that I went about 2 weeks without ejaculating prior to this, so I was well built up and ready to go. I didn't plan on lasting more than a minute or two under these circumstances, so the 6 to 7 minutes I told my friend should be plenty of time. Anyways, the time comes, and I head into the bathroom. 2 minutes later I hear the knock, and she joins. We are both small people, but those washrooms are tiny, and it's extremely uncomfortable trying to find a position that actually works. I would absolutely not recommend trying this if you're 6 foot plus and or over 200 lbs. After a few minutes we find a position that works, but now I'm struck with so much adrenaline and nerves that for the first time in my life, I was getting performance anxiety. I knew we had limited time, and I had made it this far already. I needed to complete the task. A quick minute or two of foreplay, and I was good to go. As anticipated, I didn't last very long at all. I wasn't wearing a condom either. I pulled out before finishing, and 2 weeks worth of my troops went shooting all across the bathroom. On the wall, the floor, the door, it was everywhere. Obviously I reached for the toilet paper to clean up, but right as I do I hear the knocks on the door. It was time to go. I quickly did up my belt buckle and left. and 2 minutes later she left as well. I don't know if she fully cleaned up after me, but regardless I felt bad for the next person using that washroom. And when I spoke to my friend about it, he told me he was too lazy to climb over the people beside him, so he just asked some confused, random girl to knock on the bathroom door. I think she figured out what was going on pretty soon after. Actual flight attendant here. My girlfriend came on one of my layovers recently, and we had a very long delay to get back home. The flight that left before us was booked light, so they reaccommodated all of the remaining passengers to that flight. When we finally flew back to base, we had no passengers, so my girlfriend decided to stay on my flight and be the only passenger. Looking back, I probably missed an opportunity. That was the best lead up to a terrible conclusion. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like down below, and we'll see you in the next one.